about how ELIXIR is going to support these other projects, and if you think setting up ELIXIR is impossibly difficult, then this is even more impossibly difficult. So there's just a brief overview of ELIXIR here, and I think it's important for many of us to realise that we don't do bioinformatics because it's fun and we enjoy doing it, really. That isn't the reason we're doing it. And we don't make these databases because we like making databases. It's because they're going to be used in medicine, they're going to be used in agriculture, they're going to be used in all across all areas of life. And as I think has already been said, that the Commission firmly believe that life sciences and information technology are the opportunity for repairing the European economy, and clearly ELIXIR is going to be a key part of that infrastructure. And so this is one of the very important things. Many people would say the most important thing that ELIXIR is going to do after it's set itself up is make sure that all these services get used in other areas. Having worked in bioinformatics, genetics, genomics all my career, I tend to be fairly blasé about genetics, and a lot of people one meets are very frightened of it. And I actually had an experience the other day which almost frightened me. I met somebody, a young guy, very bright eyes, from a consumer products company, very large consumer products company that makes everything. And I asked him about his project, and he said, well, I'm setting up this project to look at how people's genomes affect their choices of consumer product. And amazing. This company thinks the kind of telly you're going to buy is in your genome, and that once we have personal genomes, you may want to use that data. So maybe you'll have your genome on your mobile phone, and you'll walk past the TV shop, and the TV shop will analyse your genome and suggest some TVs that you might wish to buy. I mean, what is not going to be possible? It's just incredible. So this is an intro to this slide. I made this slide because we're talking a lot to politicians now and people in funding agencies, many of whom don't have a bioinformatics background, some not even a scientific background, and people say, I just want one slide that explains what ELIXIR is. So I'd be interested in the impact this has on you, whether you think it's over the top or whether you think it's a reasonable way to describe ELIXIR. And clearly the idea I have in mind is that the Industrial Revolution started, and it was aimed at providing consumer products. Travel for all was a particular thing with the railways and the canals, and aimed at industry and commerce. And of course the Industrial Revolution is still going on, and for it to happen we need power generation and coal and iron and steel and railways and ships, and power generation is still a problem, and transport is still a problem, and our resources are still a problem, so it's carrying on. And then we've had more recently we've had another revolution in information, which is aimed at communication, education and entertainment, and requires these things. And of course then we're moving into another revolution now, a biological revolution, which is going to tackle these huge problems we're facing, the world's facing. How do we deal with aging populations? How do we deal with our food supply, and how do we protect the environment? And there is going to be some infrastructure built to do that, and obviously we believe that ELIXIR is going to be the foundation of that. And as I say, politicians I've shown this to really like it, but if you think it's a great slide, please email me and say it's a great slide. If you don't like it, email me and tell me why. Thanks. So this is it. Interaction with and support for data in other ESFRI projects. We want our data used in medicine, agriculture and environmental protection. Just a little bit of history of where these ideas have come from. So currently this is really the strategy for Europe until 2020, and it's called the 2020 Strategy for Growth and Jobs, dealing with these things that I've already mentioned. And innovation is a key part of it, and the Commission, as I say, have already identified life sciences and ICT as the place they want to see innovation. And the biological and medical challenges have been identified as providing the opportunity, as Janet already mentioned, for economic growth, recovery and growth. So I think ELIXIR is going to be underlying things that are going to fix the European economy. So this is another way I like to present ELIXIR in a single slide. And this down here, of course, is Janet in her research guise when she has all of these data delivered to her desktop. And all these industries, we think, are going to use these things. And we tend to think about these in terms of the central dogma of biochemistry, genomes, expression, proteins, things that bind to proteins, the way proteins interact with each other, of course all underscored and supported by the literature. And integrating these things when we're facing this onslaught of data across all of Europe is a colossal task, and it has to be shared out. We must not do the same thing in all different places. So going back 10 years to this, I think, rather important conference, where these ideas for infrastructures, this is as far back as I went when looking for these ideas, and it has these things: they must be unique, they must provide outstanding services, and access must convey a European added value. And these things are really at the heart of ELIXIR still after all that time. And the European research area is one of the ways that these are going to happen, and we think ELIXIR, if properly funded, will become one of the main pillars of the European research area. And Janet's already mentioned ESFRI, which was the organisation through which ELIXIR and the other projects have come. And there are now 35 of these new projects in the first generation, I think about 40 so in the second generation, and now close to 45. And these are the criteria here that were used by ESFRI in order to create these things. And the ideas are still around, being discussed and being agreed on, and we have these grand challenges, and research infrastructure is going to be key to making it happen. So this is just a single slide I have, which sort of looks at the political and historical background of where these preparatory phases have come from, and we're working really at the end of this timeline now, and it is quite exciting that construction starts. When you work just on one thing like I do, you can get a bit obsessive about ELIXIR, and when I heard that the first country had signed the Memorandum of Understanding, my wife and I opened a bottle of champagne for supper. We were so happy about it. I'd love to tell you who it was, but we're keeping it a secret because we're going to announce everybody together. But if you ask some members of the ELIXIR Steering Committee, they might provide a suitable drink, they might tell you who it was. So for the first generation, these were conceived very much as supporting medicine and supporting the drug discovery process, and this is going back through 2 or 3 years now, and we had this idea that maybe the different infrastructures, the structural biology, model organisms, translational research, biobanking, clinical trials, that these supported the research, discovery and development process for new medicines, and ELIXIR underlies all these. And that's certainly true, and that will carry on, but as ELIXIR went on and we consulted more, we came to see that there will be a huge effort for supporting agriculture, for supporting environmental protection, and many other things. And as the new projects came on stream, so we now have EMBRC. This is the infrastructure for marine organisms, and every person who works on a marine organism wants its genome sequenced. The larger chunk, I can't remember how big a chunk it is, but the larger chunk of creation exists in the sea. People believe that many of the organisms in the sea are making unusual compounds, and compounds that we don't have representatives of in our compound databases that may very well provide medicines and who knows what in the future. And we also have ELIXIR, which is the infrastructure for secure laboratories, and they will be working on things like how to protect Europe from the emerging pandemics and bioterrorism, and of course they will need access to these kind of data. And what's another new one? There's a chemical biology one. Oh yes, EU Open Screen is another of the new one, and this is the idea to get compound libraries into the public domain and freely available to anyone who wants to use them. And they will want to link their data to our data, and we must find ways of supporting them. So as our understanding of the role of ELIXIR emerged, we then had this diagram, and here you see we have the different projects being supported by ELIXIR, and these supporting these big European challenges. And then the most recent, this I think is the picture that went into the documentation that we now produce for the European members of parliament and members of funding agencies. And here we have things like global security, diversity, aging population, food security around the edge, and various enabling technologies for these things. And then with the BMS research infrastructures in the middle, supporting research, innovation and training. And here we're showing them as an integrated whole. And ELIXIR is the one project that will, the one ring, if you like, that will bind all the other rings together for people of a certain age. So, where ELIXIR this isn't, as Janet said, this isn't just going to happen unless you do something. So ELIXIR put in a call to respond to this topic, clustering of the ESFRI BMI. And this is very dear to the heart of the Commission, the idea of clustering activities to build the European research area, to eliminate duplication and waste, to encourage standardization and interoperability. And the idea is to create links between these the different RI, and it's quite a modest activity at the moment when you look at the number of participants in it, because it has all of the coordinators of the other infrastructures. I think it was a really great achievement of Janet to get that to happen, and all of the other the E infrastructures are also taking part. These are people like Prace, Dante and Géant, the people who provide the infrastructure, and they're becoming very aware that biology is emerging as a massive user of infrastructures. And I don't think we're going to be allowed the attitude we've had in the past where it's my computer and I want it under my desk. We're going to have to engage with in the same way that the physicists do with the big providers of European infrastructures, and make sure that those are designed so that ELIXIR can use them. And as I think you realise, we're building bridges between infrastructures. The deliverables are infrastructure components. These are things like agreements on standards, web services, these kinds of things, ontologies. And these will be, we anticipate these will be incorporated into the ELIXIR construction. And so I've already mentioned we have the e-infrastructures as well. So it's structured like other European projects. I think this is a very big and very important work package. This also is a big one, and actually this is as well. Secure access is a major thing. We're used to thinking about secure access for personal data, but environmentalists need it. I was interested the other day, I was talking to an environmental scientist, and he said, of course, we don't want to disclose the locations of members of rare species, for example, because that increases the risk to them. And in many areas, people need to keep data secure. Although, of course, the whole open access of ELIXIR isn't going to be lost. And we have some use cases looking at how these links might take place in important areas, how we'll work with images. I haven't really got time to talk about imaging, but obviously it's taking over most of biology. Other species, model organisms, clearly personalised medicine, personal genomes, this is a massive one. And the whole biological integration across the range of scales, that we don't just want to stay in our silo and look at genes. If we look at genes, you want to just click out and look at proteins. If we look at proteins, we want to click out and look at cellular localizations, click out into compounds and so on. I guess I'm using up my time a bit. I don't have a watch, unfortunately. This is my last slide. And so here, this is the structure of it. Again, it's highly consultative. So we're having the E-Advisory Task Force. These are the E-infrastructure projects. We've got the steering committee, which is the PIs of all the infrastructures. Then the technical coordination, which will be the sort of day-to-day looking at the things we do. Thank you for your attention. So.